plans in place. So if you've got one and you attested, that's great. If you haven't already, I would say you should, if you haven't, get an email from the county that says that congratulations, you've signed up with the state to be reopened, and they give you a poster that you can print out, fill out, and put on your door. Do that, because that's sort of the statement to your customers that you've gone through the process. I know we have one on our door right here now, and it basically is sort of like the Better Business Bureau sort of certification that you've done of everything you're supposed to. So definitely put that up if you haven't already, because I think that would be really helpful. Are there any questions? Maybe we start with this before we move on to some other topics regarding the guidelines. Are there any questions that people, that you guys have about any particular items in the guidelines that are mandatory or recommended? These guidelines here are basically the same ones that go, as you know, there are two different, there's this list of guidelines, and then there's another button you click, which is basically restates all these again, and at the bottom, that's when you click your I attest. But you haven't, are there any questions regarding any of these that people might have, or concerns, or how do I make sure that this happens or that happens? I mean, they're pretty straightforward. I mean, what's surprising, I was expecting a lot more. I mean, the big item, as we all know, is the 50% capacity. And then this, in outdoors, they're saying to stay, and everything's being 6 feet apart, unless you have dividers. Is anybody considering using dividers? The separate, plexiglass or separators?
We've only opened our indoor seating to a sort of even further limited capacity since Friday. We plan on closing on Wednesday and Thursday because we have partitions. We have partitions that we were expecting Friday that haven't made their way here yet, but hopefully we'll have those by day end tomorrow. Yeah, then on Friday we'll be opening back up sort of fully 50%, incorporating partitions and all that good stuff. Some more coverage on the bar too.
Okay, yeah, because if you use dividers, you can forego. I mean, you don't have to follow the 6 foot rule, and there might be some places where it makes sense not to do that, but it's a lot more work, obviously, on your part, and expense. Okay, any other issues? I mean, that you guys, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that from here that I think were really important.
I am curious about, these guidelines, all of these guidelines are only for restaurants exclusively, or bars as well, or restaurants that can continue to serve alcohol until 1 o'clock. I know that everyone's, constantly changing. I've seen some restaurants with hours listed until 1 a.m. that, they shut down their kitchen and they turn into a bar. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I'm curious what some of you guys are doing. I know, some of you guys don't stay open super late, so it's not really a question for you, but I'm curious what the bar situation is like, if that is involved in any of these guidances, or if that's like a separate phase altogether.
It is not. It's the same phase. Yeah, so it's food and beverage, and but the same rules apply. They just get more difficult around a bar because, yeah. Dean, what are you doing bar-wise?
Uh, we just have seats. We really haven't had too much of a bar crowd. Everyone who's been drinking has been sitting at the table, and people sit at the bar. They have a group of 4. I put 4 chairs over there, and I move 2 down the other end or keep them further away. But we really haven't had, quote unquote, the drinkers come in yet, who haven't been able to sit at a table. I think people are very skittish about coming to a bar right now, and they're more comfortable at the tables.
Yeah, in theory, you're supposed to keep groups, 6 feet apart. But when you're in a bar and you have an individual or 1 or 2 people, that gets you start running out of real estate pretty fast. So yeah, so it'd be interesting. I've seen pictures around the country of bars that clearly aren't doing that. So it'll be interesting to see, how people behave here.
It's definitely not. It already is a task for all of us to, politely remind folks, please wear your mask when you are standing up from your table to use the bathroom, or, coming in to find a table. But when you add that element of alcohol to the mix, it creates some very interesting circumstances. That's why we've decided to, our kitchen is going to be closing at 9. We're going to keep the bar open until 10, and that's it. Because for us, we have folks that are not just from Ithaca, and obviously they come and frequent your restaurants too. But got folks that are from places that are either not as far as we are in our phases, or the exact opposite. From like Dallas, perhaps, and they need to be reminded that they're going somewhere where they still need to wear a mask. So I don't know if you guys carry your own disposable masks to give to customers or not, but that's something we've had to do, is give them to folks who don't have them or are from other areas. But definitely limiting the hours that someone can drink without any food has been a pretty important decision.
One thing about masks is it would be helpful if the health department could make signs that say, like, no shoes, no shirt, no mask, no service.
That's awesome.
Like, try to go to Wegmans without your shoes on and see what happens. You'll get kicked out, but they're not kicking. They're not going to tell you to put your mask on. But
well, we've got.
it really is the same as no shoes, no shirt.
Yeah, they have posters, obviously, that the health department put out that say wear your mask, but
well, linking it to shoes and shirt in terms of
you almost have to make your own poster.
I'm going to.
Because that's a really good idea. People get that no shoes, no shirt, no servers. Yeah,
yep.
They get that. Okay, well, obviously, if you don't, you probably need to get a supply of masks, because you'll need them for your employees. In theory, in theory, but according to the regulations you attest to, you will, you're responsible for providing them to your employees, although most people kind of carry their own. But then you also need to have them, like you said, for visitors and customers. I know I was talking with a couple of the hotels this past weekend. They actually pushed over 50%. One of them actually pushed over 60%. So that's which is great. But that's that means there are more people coming in as visitors, and I suspect you're going to see visitors. This is a funny community. There will be a large, I think, segment of our population that'll be slow to return to normal life. I think some of the younger people and some of when students come back, they will take it. They won't have as much difficulty doing that. But I think visitors is another group that probably doesn't have a whole lot of obviously they're traveling, so they've already made that decision that it's okay to kind of go out and about. But there will be a lot of visitors, I think. I think there'll be an increasing number of visitors as we get through this summer. So it's something you're going to have to keep in mind. Okay. Well, let me not dwell on this too much then, because obviously, if you've gone through this, that's great. My concern, I think, is that you see your colleagues, let them know that they should they should go through this process and a test. There's a thing I worry about is I don't want anyone losing their liquor license. If there's a problem and someone shows up and they have not signed up, that's probably the worst possible scenario. If you've signed up and there's a problem, then, I think they'll work it out. But if you haven't, it's sort of like driving without, without having license, without a license or without registering your car. You can get away with it until you get caught. But if you get caught, you're going to get, then you're going to get hurt and hurt probably bad. So that's what I worry about with people. And what we're seeing from the records, apparently from the county, is that a large number of our businesses have not signed up. And that just worries us. And I would say at this point, a majority of our restaurants have not signed up. So if you know people, if you come across some of your colleagues, urge them to do that for sure. Let me turn to outdoor dining for a little bit, because that's something that, we've been spending some time. One of the ways you can mitigate the 50%, rule and try to get some more spaces is by getting more outdoor dining to the extent that you can. And obviously you guys know all about this because you've been working it pretty well. Each place has its own unique character and its own unique location. And so in downtown and in the city, as a whole, one size doesn't fit all. So what's good for Viva may not be good for Simeon's, and what's good for Monk's may not be good for Mia. And what's good for Mia, may have nothing to do with bickering twins. So it's all over the place. Each one is a little bit different. If you're on the Commons, the city has made an offer to us that they'd be willing to work with businesses on the Commons to provide some blue tables if people would take care of them, meaning they would sanitize them and, actually watch over them. Because that's something that the city can't do, and it's something that we can't do on a regular basis. So we are working with several different restaurants to do that. But that would work on the Commons. As you know, we are working on closing a couple streets. One is the 100 block of Aurora, and the other one is part of the 100 block of West State. And that's to help businesses in that area. And we're getting pretty close. An application went into the SLA on behalf of businesses. On behalf of the block, for example, up around in the Simeon's Viva area. That means if you expand your areas, we can do it under the city application to the SLA. You will have to, I think we collected information from all of you about how that will happen, but now we're waiting for the SLA to get back to us with the approval, and then that can move forward. But each place downtown's a little bit different, and we've been hearing some pushback and some questions from different places around downtown and around the community going, hey, what about me? I want to do that too, or what can I do? And the answer is each place is unique. And even on the Commons, each place is unique. Some places are easier to add more tables to than others. And some places you have real estate to work with, and some places you don't. And it's just a function of what you got, what your situation is. So hopefully all of you on the call here can take advantage of adding tables. Josh, where are you guys? Are you adding more?
We are probably going to be adding a few like removable we'll add a few tables.
We're having trouble hearing you.
Sorry, I always do this. I don't talk directly to my computer. As of right now, we're not. We're keeping it with the 5 on the patio, but we're looking into it. We're looking to see if, because we have the easement off the patio, we're seeing if just during service we, have some tables that we can set up and then take down when service is over. Similarly to what we do for like the CFTU summer concert after party and stuff like that.
Yep.
But yeah, as of right now, we're keeping it with the 5 because we're still operating in sort of like a to-go capacity with limited service. Friday, we plan on resuming full table-side service. So that's probably when we'd be more inclined to add a couple tables.
Okay. Okay. Well, if ever people need help in figuring out what to do with, for example, if you want to try to use some additional public space there, let us know and we can kind of go to bat for you on that. So hopefully, if you don't have to, that's great, because then you don't have to worry about city rules. And city rules can get more onerous. We are waiting.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is the city is the city charging for the extra outdoor dining on the commons?
Yeah, we haven't heard yet. I've made the pitch that they shouldn't.
Yep.
So we'll see. We'll see if they buy that. I mean, I think it's an optics thing at this point. If they can, it's, oh my God, we can't, oh. So I hope the answer is yes, that they won't charge. The argument I made was that outdoor dining isn't as valuable as it was, because you now have, instead of the density that you're allowed to have for tables is halved, right? Or more than halved. So it's what had some value, had a value of X 6 months ago, doesn't have that anymore, because you have less opportunity to put tables out and chairs out. So it, in many respects, even if you double your space, you might be having the same amount of people. So that was my argument to them in terms of why they shouldn't charge, as well as it's just a tough time for obviously everybody.
It's a sales tax generator.
It is, and that would be helpful to them as well, probably more so. Right.
That's he would pay way more in sales tax than in the paying for the square footage. I mean, generate sales tax, not pay it.
Right. Right. So if they end up charging, I've asked them to do it on a monthly basis, so it's not onerous or it's not difficult. But so we're still waiting to hear. We have a meeting with them tomorrow, and we'll see what they have to say about it. But I know they've been reviewing it themselves, and I know they haven't been able to come to a conclusion. And I know it really has to do with this sort of just this vision. I mean, it's just optics to the public. Am I giving away something? And in a time when I am cutting, all these programs. So I get it. So it's up. They'll have to figure that out. We've certainly made the appeal and the push that that there shouldn't be an extra charge. They're already charging. And I know, there's a couple merchants, couple businesses on the commons, for example, who have never applied for outdoor dining and now are. And they were arguing, well, I shouldn't have to pay anything. And we said, well, wait a minute, everybody else is paying. But paying for extra, that's a different thing. Because, like I say, you're not buying the same product that you were, last year.
Well, we have also paid. We've paid since April 1st for a permit we couldn't use.
That's a good point.
So.
Oh, that's another good point. I like that. I'm writing that down.
And do you know if, assuming the Aurora Street gets approved by the SLA, will the restaurants need to send in anything to the SLA, or will it be done?
Allison, what's your sense on that?
My sense is that if you already have a liquor license in your business, and your space is contiguous outside, which you already have that, right now, it should not be any issue. And that's why the municipality is getting more of the blanket for the space. It's just the additional coverage, acknowledging that the city's like closing off a street, but your new space will just go farther out from where it is up to the curbside. So it shouldn't have any impact, but you may need to, at least from what I understood from a seminar I sat in on, you may need to resubmit a new footprint to put on file. But if you already have your license, there's no change. It's just they want to see like a new footprint. So it's like they're updated on it, but there's no new paperwork. They're just going to amend it like this is a temporary service space. And that was what I gathered from the workshop, was that they would like to see that you've updated them with your new footprint showing the larger space, but beyond that you should be good to go. And that I believe you can do, they said up to 5 days after like the change goes into effect. So it could be done kind of retroactively, just as a courtesy and service to them, really.
Yeah.
Scott just walked by my office and heard the question. He said, yeah, he said, you're good. I think I do recall that question about having to retroactively just send them a new revised description of what you got. But that's all. So
People aren't allowed to bring alcohol into the street though, right? Even though the block's sold up, or is?
yeah, thank you for asking that, because apparently that was an issue over the weekend. Yeah, this is not, we didn't permit a beer garden or open container, an area like we do for the summer concerts where you have, you have this big area that's got security guards on either side. That, that's not what this is. The idea is each business will be responsible for their own tables, their own customers. And so in theory, no. What we've seen, what apparently was happening this weekend was that there were people walking around with, I'm going to guess to go drinks, and doing kind of New Orleans style walking around with them.
That's the only slippery slope with us being able to sell to-go cocktails and stuff like that. People have them in a closed container and they just leave. Now they're not our customers anymore because they took their to-go drink to go. So, and they're just drinking it as they are. So it's a slippery slope there.
Yeah. Now, when you give someone a to-go drink, does it have a cover on it?
Yes.
Yeah. So at that point, it's not your response. Once they leave with that covered container, it's not your responsibility anymore.
Uh-huh.
I think. Is that right?
I don't know.
Yeah. But that's one of the things. Yeah, that's one of the things we're struggling with probably the most. The police presence downtown is not what it was. And in fact, we're struggling to find police officers these days downtown. So I suspect issues like this are going to be hard to deal with. So, the more one can control, we're hoping this doesn't happen a lot, because in the streets that we're closing, the idea is not to, the street is for people, for pedestrians to walk. It's not
a block party.
It's not a block party. Right. Now in West State Street, where runaway trucks aren't a concern, there may be an ability to put a few more tables and chairs there, but still, that's going to be controlled by the individual establishment. They're not public tables and chairs. So it's not a block party, right?
Yeah, I think, if I may jump in, you have to treat it like you are having your sidewalk service. It's just, it goes to the edge of the sidewalk now. So however you were operating with beverages in your space in the summertime, but it had that rope halfway down the sidewalk to give just the exact footprint that you had for your permit. It now goes to that sidewalk. So you still have to stanchion it off like it's a sit down dining area and treat it exactly the same. You weren't letting people walk down the street with an open container. You were having them come sit down and drink, and then leave when they're done. And so it's the exact same thing. It's just people won't be walking on the sidewalk. They'll be walking in the middle of the street now.
Yep, but it's not the same because you can buy a drink to go from a takeout.
Okay, so there's
No, that's right.
That's where that drinking's coming from.
Yes.
Right. No, absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see how long the state sticks with that. I suspect so long as we're at 50%, once we get to 100%, I would be surprised if they keep that, that would disappear. But
They're having a huge problem with it in New York City.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've heard from cities they're having the same problem with the takeaway. It's the takeaway food, or mostly the takeaway alcohol, that's becoming a problem. People are going into areas where they shouldn't be drinking and just opening up their beverages. And we've heard it from other cities as well.
Well, and we've seen it here. People, we've tried the city has not put tables and chairs back on the commons for a reason, for a couple of reasons. This is one of the reasons, but it's not the big reason. The big reason was they just can't maintain them. They can't bus them. They can't sanitize and clean them after each use. So it doesn't, that's why they'll put them out for individual businesses if someone agrees to take care of them. So for the time being, I don't think we're going to see extra tables and chairs on the commons, but there's lots of places for people to sit, permanent tables. Permanent places where people can sit on, and so we're seeing a little bit of that happening already. I short of having an officer sort of there saying, "Hey, don't do that," I'm not sure what else one can do, other than that's to me is one of the outstanding questions of this whole process that I don't think was terribly well thought out.
Are we going to be able to get documentation that that we're allowed? I personally, before I open up my expanded sidewalk area, would like some legal assurance from either the city or the state liquor authority that I'm allowed to do that.
Oh, okay. I would suspect we can get something from the city. The city got permission from the state liquor authority, so sort of one begets the other. It's a good question. Let me see how we do that, Ursula. That would be an interesting question, because it's just a matter of someone writing a letter saying you're good to go. And I think we can get Jen Kushner from the city to do that. Something else I would probably go over is sort of what's likely to happen in terms of parking and takeout. Right now, everyone doing, many of you are doing takeout, and Chick, I see you on the line there from DeWitt. Howdy. For takeout, there's a couple of options. One of the things that's about to happen is the city will soon be going back to charging for parking. And when that happens, they're thinking of a couple different things. One would be to have a 15 or 20 minute grace period anywhere at the meters or in the garages. If they do that, that would be wonderful, because that makes takeout, takeout easy. Someone can just stop, get their stuff, and get back in the car and go. Or someone can, from the restaurant can run it out to you, and you don't have to worry about anything. What the city's been telling us is if someone's likely to, if you're going to get out of your car and then walk, for a few minutes and spend 5 minutes waiting for your food and 5 minutes walking back, it's probably better just to go to a garage, park for nothing, and then not worry about what's going to happen. Again, but I don't know if there's a lot of enforcement capability right now in the part of the city. So in the daytime, I would say, yeah, that'd probably be an issue. As it gets later in the nighttime, you know, I don't think there's any enforcement. But do know that parking, you know, there will be a change in parking. They're talking about making an hour free in the garages on a temporary basis to kind of transition people back. And we've been approving that. We like that idea. So we'll see what happens with that. But right now the parking is still free. But we expect that to change in the very near future. And we haven't heard exactly when, but the city has been drawing up plans to transition back to paid parking in some way, shape, or form. So know that that's going to have some impact as well, particularly on takeout, but again, I think they've tried to make this provision for like 15 minutes of no charging, and that'll be good, because I think that'll be helpful. Other questions that people might have on sort of doing business as a restaurant?
Have there been any complaints?
Surprisingly, very few. Surprising. I mean, the biggest complaints we're getting right now are from other restaurants who are going, well, yeah, but what about me? I mean, can you close the block in front of my place? I want more outdoor dining, or I want it for free, or I want, you know, I mean, those are the kind of, I think, complaints we're getting right now. The public, surprisingly, not that many. We have other merchants complaining about people on the pedestrian mall and throughout downtown not wearing masks, you know, and being worried about that. We do have we're going to have an escalation workshop on Thursday, because a number of our businesses are concerned about how do I tell people without getting into a fight with them to wear a mask, or to, you know, to stay socially distanced. So we are doing that as an effort to try to deal with that question, because that's come up repeatedly. But no, it's been interesting how remarkably quiet that's been, and that's not usual here. Usually there are people complaining about everything. But I think there's so much going on. It's hard to, I think, get people's attention right now. And maybe that's it. As things start quieting down, they'll turn their attention more to the mundane things of the world, you know. But right now, yeah, Allison, I've not heard much in terms of people complaining.
Has Cornell made any decision yet?
Yeah, so this is what I know about Cornell. Today was the deadline for they have a bunch of committees that they formed to come up with recommendations. And today was their deadline for submitting their reports to the to the president and to the executive staff there at the university. And then what I've heard from Gary Stewart and others at University Relations is that it'll be early July when they make a decision about what they're going to do. The last communication I saw from Gary Stewart said basically, you know, they're trying their best to find some way to reopen. I mean, and that's essentially what they said. So it would surprise me if they did not reopen. But we don't know, you know, how they will do it, what those options would be, if it'll be in August, if it would be in September, like, you know, the end of September, like IC is doing. We don't know. But their recommendations were due today, and they're taking, you know, whatever time, they're taking 2 weeks-ish to come up with their final decision about how they're going to do it, which makes some sense because phase 4 is due out right around the 1st of July. And phase 4 deals with, entertainment and larger gatherings. And so I think, in education, so it'll be interesting. I think everybody's waiting to see how, if the state is going to weigh in on, with things, with some other things that might, or some curveballs they don't know about. And I think that's why you see them kind of waiting on that. But right now, if I were betting, I'd bet that they're going to do something to try to stay open. But I'm not the decision maker. I see, obviously, looking to open the end of, bringing students back end of September, opening early October. And then we haven't heard yet about TC3. There, I mean, but much smaller, but not as much of a presence, an impact on us here downtown. But Cornell obviously is huge. It's really, it's what drives our train. So. What else? Anything else? Inchik, any particular questions from your neck of the woods in terms of the restaurants and the food and beverage you have over there?
There's no mic.
Nope.
I have a quick question for the restaurants that were open. With accommodating for the reopening and people coming in, were you able to handle the amount of people coming in, or were you into to dine, or were there a piling up of people waiting, like staffing to how much you could accommodate in your business at any time? Were there more people interested in dining than you could serve?
On Friday, yes. Saturday and Sunday were pretty mellow.
And what do you attribute Friday to? Just the novelty of the first day back?
I don't know. Maybe it was just a nicer weather because it was a little cooler on the weekends. But I don't know.
Okay, well, it's nice to hear that people are coming back.
I was gonna say that one of the biggest reasons why is right now our seating is first come first serve. We have our staff that's here to bus tables and sanitize tables, but we as it's been first come first serve, we've allowed folks to, if a table's available, it's available, you can take it. And we were initially planning on doing this sort of order from the bar, take it to your table style for a little while, just because we didn't really know what to expect. And it definitely is not going to last. One of the reasons we're switching to like full table service with a host is because people are not afraid to sit down at a table that has clearly been used and hasn't been cleaned. That's been, a challenge, trying to get to a table, no matter how much signage you put on a table, clearly indicating, like, please do not sit down. Please let us clean the table for you. Folks just want to sit down. So I think that's been kind of a challenge. I'm sure that a lot of us are not, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, for us, we're not operating with our entire staff that we had back in March. So we're trying to meet the needs of the demand, but it's pretty clear that the demand is huge, and some folks, aren't quite patient to make sure tables are sanitized and clean until they can sit down and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, all I can say is good luck with that. I mean, I was in the grocery line last weekend and some lady who was in front of me was dressing down the cashier because at Wegmans, they spray down the conveyor belt before the next party comes on, and she wanted no part of that. She just wanted to get in and get out, and said, "I don't need that."
Right.
And she said, "You don't understand. I got to do that. I'm required to do that."
Yeah.
And the woman had just no patience for it all. So yeah, I don't know what you do. In that case, you just got to do your best. That's where that help. Yeah, your people.
And she was sober.
Yeah, and she was sober. She hadn't been drinking, as far as we know. Yeah, but yeah, and that's where people are going to earn their stripes. Dealing with people like this. It's not.
Yeah. Fortunately, probably I would say 95 to 99% of the people that we've interacted with are pleasant, grateful to just be able to go outside and eat or go inside and eat. Patient for the most part. Besides the actual wanting to snag a table so that they have a place to sit, everyone is, overall really pleasant and just excited for some positive changes.
Good. Well, any other questions that people have? Then we can. The idea was to sort of see where we were on this, to get your feedback, to let you know what we know. We are waiting to get the SLA information back for the street closures, and we'll have more on that, and we can tell you in far more detail what the rules and regulations for that will be as soon as we get that approval from the SLA. But in the meantime, we wanted to make sure everybody kind of knew what they had to do for being open in phase 3. My only concern, obviously, is not with you guys. It's just the worry that so many of our businesses, not just restaurants, but retailers and personal service businesses, they have not signed up with the state. And I just worry that at some point that could bite them. I just don't want that to. So if you know any of your friends, just tell them to, let them know that it's not a hard thing to do and that it's a great insurance policy to have. So they should definitely do it. Okay, well, thank you for joining us, folks. Good luck to you. Call us if you have any questions or concerns. And in fact, if you want to talk more about that question about Grubhub, and I'm happy to think about it, but we'd have to, I want to have some serious thinking about what we would propose and how we would do it. So, okay.
Thank you.
We also, just a quick, we are organizing a webinar on Wednesday at 11 to just specifically talk to the street closures. And so we'll be sending out a link to sign up, and it's really just going over what we know so far. A lot of it we talked about briefly, but it'd be going into details about that. I encourage you to attend, and also tell other businesses to attend as well if they feel like they are not informed about what's going on. It's a good place to learn about it.
Thank you.